There is no doubt that two of the biggest names that there will ever be in NASCAR are Dale Earnhardt and Rick Hendrick. One known for being a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, and the other as a multi-championship car owner. But many might be surprised to find out that Rick Hendrick got his start in NASCAR with the help of another legendary name, as well as Dale Earnhardt. Many would be even more surprised to learn that the first NASCAR win for Rick Hendrick did not come from one of his legendary Hendrick Motorsports drivers, but from another name when Hendrick was in a partnership with this other legendary figure.
3, 2, 1.
In the world of NASCAR, legends are often defined by what happens on the track. But behind every roaring engine and checkered flag, there are unsung heroes, builders, dreamers, and craftsmen. To tell this amazing story, we have to add that one other legendary name into this mix. A guy who wasn't a man of the spotlight, but in the garage, he was a giant. A master fabricator who helped power some of NASCAR's greatest stories, one bolt at a time. This man was Robert Gee. His hands shaped sheet metal and steel into championship-caliber machines. From local dirt tracks to the high banks of Daytona, the cars he built were fast, tough, and respected, just like the man himself. In the heart of South Hill, Virginia, during the early 1960s, a bond was formed that would shape the future of American motorsports. Robert Gee, a respected local mechanic and hot rod fabricator, ran a place called Flying Ace, more than just a service station. It was a hub for young racers and dreamers. At just 15 years old, a teenager named Rick Hendrick walked through those garage doors.
Rick Hendrick was a drag racer at the age of 14. At the age of 15, he had a Chevelle. He wanted to put a modified hood on. There was only one place to go in town, and that was Robert Gee's Flying Ace. But he was kind of scared, kind of intimidated, to go in this place where legendary hot rodders hung out. But
by the early 70s, Dale Earnhardt was beginning to make a name for himself as a competitor that raced with passion and aggression, traits that would define him throughout his career. His early days were tough, money was tight, and mechanical failures were common, but Dale's raw talent and determination began to stand out. His connection to Robert Gee would also stand out. In 1971, Dale would marry Brenda, the daughter of Robert Gee. By 1975, Dale Earnhardt had made his climb to the Winston Cup, now NASCAR Cup Series, for his debut at Charlotte Motor Speedway, driving for Ed Negri. Over the next few years, he raced part-time, piecing together opportunities with smaller teams. During this time, Dale was not only entertaining crowds at NASCAR events but beyond. He was also competing in Robert Gee's number 17 late-model Camaro kicking ass. In 1979, Dale got his big break with car owner Rod Osterland, who gave him a full-time ride. That same year, he won Rookie of the Year honors. With all the success he was having on the track, it also brought an unfortunate situation at home. And during the 1979 season, Dale's marriage to Brenda would come to an end. But through the years, 2 children were come along to carry on the Earnhardt name, Kelly and Dale Jr. Most would think this would also bring an end to any relationship between Dale and his former father-in-law Robert Gee, but that wasn't the case. Dale Earnhardt would go on to win the NASCAR Winston Cup title the very next year and solidify himself as a true contender in NASCAR's highest level. In 1982, NASCAR would announce a new title sponsor and format for its second-tier series.
NASCAR had introduced the NASCAR Sportsman Series in 1950. They changed it to the Late Model Sportsman Series in 1968. But in 1982, they made big changes to it that kind of made it what it is today.
For the 82 season, Robert Gee was hard at work crafting a Pontiac that would be painted a familiar blue and yellow and lay the logos of a famous brand across the sheet metal. February 13, 1982. Daytona International Speedway. A day that would mark the dawn of a new era in NASCAR racing. On this day, the NASCAR Budweiser Late Model Sportsman Series, now known as the Xfinity Series, held its inaugural race at the famed Daytona track. 34 drivers took to the track, each vying for a piece of history. One of those drivers was Dale Earnhardt, who Robert Gee had put in his car once again. The pole position was claimed by Mike Porter, setting a blistering pace with a qualifying speed of 184.569 miles per hour. The 120-lap race was a test of skill and strategy. With 31 lead changes and 5 cautions over 21 laps, the competition was fierce. As the race neared its conclusion, Dale Earnhardt found himself in a fierce battle for the lead with Jody Ridley. Ridley made several attempts to overtake, but Earnhardt's experience and strategic moves kept him in front. On the final lap, Earnhardt held off Ridley to claim victory in the inaugural Goodies Sportsman 300.
Give it to Earnhardt. Ridley goes back to the outside, ran out of room and time. Earnhardt has won.
He would race in 9 races over the season, gathering 5 DNFs, but would collect another win at Caraway Speedway. With the upcoming 1983 season, the team once again planned a partial schedule. Daytona did not bring the same results, leaving the team headed back to North Carolina with a 21st place finishing position. But a couple weeks later at Rockingham, the backyard race team was back in victory lane. Following this exciting win, the wheels of what would become major history began to turn. Over the next couple months, the Wrangler Pontiac would sit idle before returning to the track at Dover on May 14th, coming home with a 4th place finish in their 3rd outing of the year. The next race on the schedule was at a track just down the road from the backyard shop of Robert Gee. It was Charlotte Motor Speedway, the very same track Dale Earnhardt made his NASCAR Cup debut at in 1975. When the teams made their way onto the prestigious grounds of Charlotte Motor Speedway, something had changed for the Robert Gee organization. A new team partner had joined as co-owner, a name not familiar to the NASCAR racing scene, but as a businessman who wanted to get into the NASCAR world. That man was Rick Hendrick. The Wrangler Pontiac, driven by Dale Earnhardt, would start the week off with an impressive 3rd place qualifying position. As the race was coming close to a conclusion, it was obvious the number 15 of Dale Earnhardt was in position to score the big win for the organization. And as the checkered flag was waved, the beginning of a future legacy was unfolding.
As they come across the line, the tough customer, Dale Earnhardt, wins it for Wrangler.
Dale Earnhardt and Robert Gee gathered another NASCAR win, but Rick Hendrick would get his first victory as a NASCAR team owner. That day marked the beginning of a trend that would continue for all involved, but maybe not as originally planned. By late in the 1983 season, Rick Hendrick had made the decision to form a NASCAR Cup Series team of his own. Robert Gee would do the fabrication on the cars and remain a co-owner in the Sportsman Series. Rick's plan was to have Dale Earnhardt as his driver, but Dale had his eyes set on returning to Richard Childress Racing for the '84 season. After many attempts to gain Dale Earnhardt as his driver, Rick Hendrick was able to convince him to shake down his Winston Cup car at Charlotte Motor Speedway in preparation for the upcoming season, where Jeffrey Bodine would take over as the first Cup driver for the newly formed All-Star Racing. Robert Gee would become head of fabrication for the team for the rest of his career. Nobody at the moment knew how impactful the 3 names of this story would be to the NASCAR world. Rick Hendrick would change the organization's name to Hendrick Motorsports, and to date go on to win 14 NASCAR Cup titles. Robert Gee would remain with Hendrick Motorsports until his passing in 1994, and Dale Earnhardt would capture 7 NASCAR Cup Series titles before his untimely passing at Daytona in 2001.
Legendary figures. That's pretty wild to think about what could have happened had Dale Earnhardt drove for Rick Hendrick. Could he obtain 7 championships with Rick Hendrick along with Jimmy Johnson's 7 championships? In my opinion, I think it all ended up just the way it was supposed to. Now, one thing I did leave out of this story right here was that Rick Hendrick and Robert Gee had a prior connection outside of their studio years. And that was Rick Hendrick sponsoring Robert Gee's late models throughout the years. And one of those drivers was Hayward Plyler, a guy that I got to know throughout the years when I worked at Beasley Cross Chevrolet. And that's an interesting story in itself because this was a longtime sponsor of Ralph Earnhardt himself. And I got to hear some cool stories about the days that make this story all the more special. But I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please share it. Please give it a like. Hit that subscribe button. And throw them comments down below. That's what keeps me going. But anyways, hope everybody out there is off to a great weekend. And as always, we'll see you at the Checker Flag.